subdivisions on chapter 4. Are those going to be inserted later? Is there someone else?
The legal descriptions will be, I guess, provided by somebody. Like I said, our former attorney drafted those. I haven't seen anything in the file as to how those are going to be developed, so I assume executive is going to be working heavily in that area as far as subdivisions. I guess that would be a question for the director. What is the purpose of having the subdivisions outlined? Is that based on funding area? So when you start drawing lines, there might be a problem. So again, the question is to the director, what is the pros and cons of outlining a subdivision? Is it necessary in this ordinance? And what would it serve? Do we have to have it in there?
Well, I guess it'd be the ownership of the land. Who owns the land? The tribe. And it's this is something where Bighorn is there's no really set community out there, and while I think there's a limited area, Minnie, there's no subdivision there, unless it's a plot of tribal land. I guess once you identify those lands now with the land buyback, there might be some more tribal ownership. And with that, you have to have infrastructure, electricity, roads, and sewer lines. And I think that's really important when you have those sewer lines and then telephone lines. And then along with the internet lines, if you're going to have them in there. So this kind of subdivision, I think it's primarily new, because if you want to go build some homes, you want to build them on, I don't know, I don't know what call them as, each community has their own little ghetto. But if you don't want ghettos, but you'd like to have some homes. And I think scattered homes would be kind of like out, because it belongs on the individual's land. And if they don't pay, there's no enforcement, but there's a certain portion that's leased to the housing authority, and we could evict the people, but the land, the lease itself will be housing, but the homes can be. And you really don't want to move someone's home from their land here. But the subdivision should belong to the housing authority or the tribe. Then from there, that's where we have, what I was talking to Don is, if it's, where Solidarity Warrior was, there's infrastructure. There was roads, electricity, sewer lines that were already completed, but they never got the right-of-way. There was no right-of-way for us, so that the building was already completed. We had that site, but it was really tough to get electricity and telephone line in there. And even when we do that, we have to have an environmental, and TIPO had to be there. And this is a tribal project, but we still have to pay for TIPO and for TARO, because some of the employees were subcontracted out with the non-coal. So those activities are there. So those infrastructures. So those roads were already in existence, but there was no right-of-way. So we had to get from, what was that term that they used from point A to point B? Was it service lines? I think that was service line from them to build those. So that's why we had this electricity going straight from on the west end to the apartment complex. The sewer line was already dug, and it was already in there for several years. Water line was already there, but we still had to work with them, saying that there's no existing right-of-way, but it was already in place. So this subdivision, I think, is probably primarily the tribal land. And they have to designate that to whoever can use it. I think that's as far as I can see. So I don't know if they want to lease it to housing for him to do that, or to legislature take over, or just designate it for homes. There is a segment up there where it's veterans, for Saturday where it's located, because they also have a veterans cemetery that's being built. You also have the Crow Tribal Cemetery, and there's some other homes that are parked there. But their lodges were built there too. So that was all before our time, and whether that was being designated as a home area. The area north of the road, from the Cynics Road, is also now tribal land. But there's gravel that's located there. I think those, whoever owned that land before is now given to the tribe and, just recently. Right there.
So I guess we can try to come up with an explanation a little bit more to define why the legislature created subdivisions in the ordinance. I guess my concern would be is how the funding is distributed for certain projects, and does it set up a scheme that would cause I don't know if this is a bad thing, but to have the districts compete for money or whatever. And that's just my thinking off the top of my head, but it might be also for the purpose of just the representation to ensure that folks are being properly represented by the community. So. At the Lodgegrass meeting the other night, the executive attorney did mention that this ordinance appears to create 6 housing authorities. That was their perspective. And that might be, when you read the language, it says the following, like for example, Lodgegrass, the following tribal land is reserved and withdrawn from being subject to the tribal leasing ordinance and is hereby dedicated and zoned as a matter of tribal law for the purpose of tribal housing subdivision under the administrative management of the housing authority in accordance with this housing ordinance. So it's kind of like the term says subdivision. However, those districts are represented by the board that's appointed by the 3 district representatives. So it's a different way of governing the housing so that each district is represented. So I just wanted to make that clear. Okay, so also we have some topics that were generated from the Lodgegrass meeting. I guess the question being, what are the tenants wanting to have in housing? And so one of the things that we talked about was a tenant bill of rights, how the waiting list is administered, notice on rent adjustments, for example, publication of rent adjustments, zero tolerance law, first time homebuyers program, collections of rent, due process for evictions, agreements between the housing and other jurisdictions, MOAs, how they're published. The other thing that came up too is enforcement of dog ordinance. So those are just some ideas that if you have any additional or comments on what you would like to see in the housing ordinance, those are some pretty good topics that were brought up last time also.
I think another one is these junk cars. You know, some people, you know, you go to get them and then they say, hey, I just need one more part. I just gotta put it on there, and then I can still use that car. You know, the car's been parked there for a while. I think that needs to be addressed too. And then there's people that we know. I mean, we all know each other. We know the drug problem is bad, and we know our neighbors that are doing drugs. We know when they have a shipment because, next thing you know, they got people parking there, coming over all day, all night. But, you know, we go and complain about them. How are we protected? Because maybe they know somebody in housing that's protecting them, and they turn around and give our name out. Then we got all these drug people against us. So we need to be protected if we're gonna. We want our children to be safe, and we look out for our children, and we look out for other children out there. And when we have these drug problems around our own homes, you know, if we're able to go in and, you know, turn them in or whatever, at least if we know that we're protected, and the people we're telling ain't counting on us, you know, it's just kind of, we get scared on that too, you know, people are around or whatever like that. But
I can talk loud enough. Mr. Rogers, have you tried coming into house? I know you're a tenant of housings, and have you tried coming in voicing your concern to your ROP case manager? And even if it's not you, have you told whoever?
I'm not saying that my neighbors are, I'm just saying that.
No, I mean, just even who.
That came in and they're talking about it, and I told them to go in.
Yeah, but we can hear it like when we're not at work. People will come up to us and tell us, but when we're not at work, we're off the clock. That's how I look at it. I'm off the clock when I'm not at work. I have 4 kids to take care of. I have a mom to take care of. So I'm off the clock when I'm not at work. I will take down a message or text John or one of the other management team if I have to. But if I'm off the clock, I'm off the clock. And I even tell my tenant, I have a work phone and I give my phone number to all my tenants. I say, if you have any concerns, call me, text me. If I don't get back to you tonight, I'll get back to you tomorrow. And the thing is, we do want to protect our communities. It's because nobody comes forward. And we hear it from non-tenants. And we need tenants to start coming forward. If we want to help them, they need to come and ask us for help. And also, we need backup.
Tribal officials and the board.
And legislatures, we need backup. Because we can go so far and then we get basically a blockade.
They go running to the officials and then they outvote John, so then we're like,
And then they run to us, and then we're like, all right, just go in and you got this process guys not supposed to do. we try to have them good, and they're like, oh, we're scared, we tell them, are they gonna do something to us? You know, and then
Well-
they're like, we just gotta be there, and process, we just gotta.
I had one tenant who called and told me about one of her neighbors, and I said, well, can you write me a letter? I said, don't put your name on it. If you are in fear of your life or your family's life, I said, don't put your name on it. I said, just put concerned citizen who lives in Johnny Wilson Acres in Lodge Grass. Just put that on there. At least they know it's a resident of that area. And they must have scared her because she never brought anything in. I tried going to Lodge Grass at least twice a week, letting everybody see me. And I mean, if they're on drugs or they're just overly intoxicated, they don't care. We don't care who you are.
And, you know, that's one thing that we had big old, you know, we had big old meetings, we had officials come in, we had the chief of police, and we had, you know, Big Orange County, you know, we had these big meetings, but when the day was over with, we just had a meeting, it was it. They didn't go on and try to protect more, you know, and then one thing they told us was, all right, we need more officers. You see all those vehicles, those police vehicles that are parked there, we just don't have officers to come in and man them. So if you guys put more money into it, we can do it. But then there was only one kid that tried it from Pro, and you know, he's in police now. But other than that, nobody wants to go out there.
And most of it is we don't have law enforcement backup. We don't have it at all. We can say run to the officials, run to the board, but when it all comes down to it, we don't have law enforcement backup. We have tenants who call the police officers and then they say call housings. We have to get permission from housings. And I'm saying, you want to know what? If my family's in danger, I want you at my house right now. That is your duty. That's why you're a cop. They shouldn't have to have our permission, especially if it's for a criminal act. And that's always their excuse. All housings. We need permission from housings.
John, is there something you do, like a letter to the cops saying you have a standing right to go into these houses? You don't have to ask us for permission, you can go in there and do it, and keep these people safe. You know, you guys get the print out of all what happens at the houses, like, let's say you get 3 calls for noise complaints, drunkenness, or whatever. Like after it gets up your desk, where does it go after that?
That's one problem, we can't get the police
We
reports.
can't get
They're
police
not.
reports. I got a police report from 2 years ago today. Today I finally got it.
So that's something we need to address and need the officials to address.
But even
And that's,
we can keep saying run to the officials, but you want to know what? When it comes to law enforcement, it's the chief of police who's in charge of our law enforcement. And he can't keep saying, well, you gotta go ask housing, you gotta go ask the officials. He needs to do his job. And it's his men and women that make us feel safe.
and like right now, there's 7 cops on our organization. It's just, there's more cops than what there's men on half the size, or 3/4 the size of our organization, there's triple. We have like 22 other police officers, we got 7. I mean, that's part of the conditions. On the committee, we're doing reports right now, we're going through the process, hey, more people down here, but then like people come from other places, everybody complains about that guy's bothering my kid, you get that person always coming over with my kid, but your kid's running around at 3 in the morning, then they want to call the cops on them, but when it comes down to the due process, that judge is mean, they're throwing a big sentence that just say, they want to keep them safe, they don't want them too much in trouble, We're having this give and take, but we're doing our part on, we're trying to request for more officers, we requested for stronger laws right now as far as DUI, and you can spend less time in jail on DUI right now than you can on, possession of intoxicants. 5 days mandatory for DUI, if you're driving around and you're in a vehicle, you can kill somebody, you can only 5 days. But if you're holding on to a bottle, something intoxicant, you get up to a max of 90 days. That's not right there. So there's things we're doing, but in this code, we can add stuff to back you guys up more, you know, we have a stronger leg to stand on. So we refer it back to the official saying, well, I'm gonna override John. No, it's in the housing ordinance, it says you can't override us, this is what it says, and it's to the board, it goes to the board. And right now, the current housing ordinance, it says that the board is appointed by council, and that is in the fact, they're appointed by the executive. Then in this one we're proposing, the board will be appointed by the legislator. And there's seven, I don't know where the computer saying the 7th district comes from. So that there's words in there that we need to change, but we can change it to help back housing stuff, that's simple.
Okay, you're saying you're gonna back us up, and where you're saying you're gonna change our board, are you also gonna change all the employees? Do you understand?
The board? No, there's-
I mean, are you gonna, because we've got the board, and then we've got the management team, then we have the admin, we have the people who work in the office, and then the maintenance crews.
No, not changing it, but giving you more of backup on the paperwork page instead of saying they're overriding John on something, you know, or you guys got no authority to do something, put it in here to where you guys get the authority to do your job right, you know, and have more of a law to back what you're doing up, you know? Because there's, when you have something, you try to do something, like say, we have a bunch of calls on this person, we want to do this, they run back to the board and they're following this old one, and you can put steps in here to where you can empower your policies and procedures to where that you can't go over your head, and you can take it back to the housing ordinance and say, oh, you can't do that, that's not part of your job. Yeah, I can, because it's here in the ordinance, this is a law that you go through, and this allows me to do my job better, you know. We're not saying changing any of the people, or the employees, or the management, anything like that. We're saying update the information and have it to where it empowers the board and the employees, where you guys have more of a stand to do your job, where you're not overridden, where you don't run into those blockades. Where they say, you can't do that, no, I can, it's right here, it's in this ordinance, I have it. So that way you don't run into those blockades, you know. You guys got ideas on it, throw them in there, you know, try to get it to where nothing, this ain't set in stone, you can make amendments to it, deadlines, you can do what we need to do to make it better. You know, there's nothing's perfect, but we can get it pretty close to it.
I'll make a recommendation
Yes.
to add it on to that Department of Public Safety, and it says prohibit of sexual offenders. Add another paragraph for alcohol, drug abuse, right there.
Are you gonna put anything about that in there?
Department of Public Safety on page 11. Would that be the best area?
Page 11?
Page 11, page 11,
The
1909, 106. 19-9, 106.
Because that kind of gives housing authority, the authority. And then
to include, drugs and alcohol. Provisions,
The backup, I'm still on the backup. That is just saying, if there's something going on in the house, the people that call in, stuff like that. I'm the code representative. I have major complaints. I know every house that's has bad things going on, but I don't do nothing. I try, but so the backup, if we went in there and John said, well, go investigate, do what you need to do, see what's going on, then we come back and say, yes, this is, and if he says, well, start the process, but then they don't back him up. Is that what you're saying? He can have more authority? Is that what the backup is?
yeah, we can add an in here to where you have really what roadblocks you guys run into on your process of that,
Yeah, because if there's a meth or drugs in there, to be determined, I have my staff already trained to administer those tests. And the example I used when I made my presentation, out of 9 homes in Crow, 3 of them were positive. Lodge grass, we checked 6 of them, 5 of them were positive. So we already have an idea where the drug activity is. People there already know, they already tell us where it is. So we know that. So we do the tests. If we want to, after 3 applications of cleaning those, and if still be positive, we want to go out there and change the sheetrock. And people can come back in there and live there again and go back to the same routine, selling drugs again. But if, the other thing was that they sell drugs, make money, they ought to pay their bill.
Yeah.
They want to work at it. But it's,
That's a felony though, if you're selling drugs in public housing.
but nobody's there to enforce it. And in some cases, we're told not to cease, don't evict them. It's 30 below zero out there, but they're still selling drugs, and we can't evict them.
there's somewhere in here where there's zero tolerance policy in that.
Make things a little complicated here. Aside from all this, we need a receiving home. Okay, and I'm coming from a social worker here. Example, we get called in, and we've taken a mother in, there's 3 kids involved. And then we go try to find a close relative, an aunt, grandmother, unable to do that. We're stuck with these kids. A lot of times we turn to try and receiving home there. Sometimes it's full. Wee hours in the morning, there's kids crying in the backseat of a government car, driving all over the place trying to find relatives. So that's a big need here on the reservation, enforcing these drug and alcohol use. That needs to be looked at too. It's a big need. Wherever we can squeeze